We're now recording. Huzzah.
I can't believe that happened to you, Ryan.
What happened to me?
That awkward thing we were just talking about that we can't put on the podcast.
Am I being punked? Is Ashton Kutcher sitting next to you?
I mean, no, that guy can't move anymore.
He's not legally allowed to punk anymore?
I don't know. Something happened to him. Like he took the vaccine.
Oh boy. Off to a strong start.
From ScienceSortOf.com, you're listening to Science Sort of.
You are listening to Science Sort of. This is episode 357. This is the podcast that talks about things that are science, things that are sort of science, and things that wish they were science. I am your host, Ryan, and join me to talk about two topics along the theme of skipping strikes. It's the return of Dr. Patrick Vaughn Wheatley.
How'd you do?
How'd I do? I thought I did fine.
Oh, good.
Is Vaughn your middle name? I just guessed.
That is my middle name.
Is it really?
Yeah.
I'm sure I knew that at some point, and I thought I was just guessing. I'm sorry if I blew up any of your security questions. For any bleep that out. Patrick Victor Wheatley. Mm-hmm. Also here in the third chair, it's Dr. Charles Charlie Barnhart.
Coming in like a Desert Eagle 357.
That's right. Speaking of things flying through the air, which is something I think both our stories this episode have in common, I kind of want to start off. I want to start nostalgic. You guys feel like starting nostalgic with skipping stones across a pond or a stream?
Yeah, man. I was skipping stones just last Sunday.
It is one of my favorite activities. And fortunately, the scientists, those scientists are at it again. And according to an article published in The Guardian, written by, who wrote it?
Arwa Smith, right?
Madawi. Well, the article, you can, Patrick, tell us who wrote the actual article.
Some dude named Palmer and Ryan Palmer. Yeah, and Frank Smith.
Well, there you go. And they published an article in the Proceedings of the Royal Society, Mathematical, Physical, and Engineering Sciences, called The Role of Body Shape and Mass in Skimming on Water. And this is actually the latest in a series of several scientific articles out there dedicated to determining the best way to skip your stones.
It's about time.
I know, right? Let's get into it. So do we need to? I mean, I love skipping a stone, and it's one of those things where it's like there are a few things in this life I claim to be legitimately quite good at. Downhill skiing is one of them, and skipping stones. I think I'm a very good stone skipper. How do you guys rank your stone skipping skills?
I think in my 20s I was really good at it. I think
that was when you peaked, not like Andy Griffith era, 12-year-old with your fishing stick and whistling your way down to the river.
I feel like I put a lot of time in as a tween and a teen, and it paid off in my 20s.
So what's your technique? What's your move?
I tend to, well, I'm not sure I have a technique that's all that different than anyone else's. Typically go for the flat sort of saddle shape, I guess. That's what I'd look for. Something.
Oh, really? I want the pure flat. I want like a disc.
No, I'm not saying so. Yeah, flat as I can find it, but I'm saying the sort of Australia shaped. If I can find a stone that sort of has a
there's like a little notch for you to put your finger on the edge of it, so you can
put a little English on it.
Mm-hmm. No, Australian. Charlie puts a little Australian on it.
Right. And then I this article is sort of about the different kinds of air you can catch off that initial skip. I'd always just sort of strove for lots of skips. So, distance, but lots of.
Yeah, I actually kind of think that the title of this I don't think it's purposely misleading, but I think it does. It's talking about a different kind of stone skipping than I think most people are out there doing. And so it's essentially saying, if you want to get one really big bounce, pick a potato-shaped rock. And the science behind that is what we're going to talk about.
It's misinformation. I think this is garbage.
Well, so I think...
Got to ask me about my technique, man.
Yeah, go for it. Fill us in, Charlie.
Sidearm.
Yep.
You really got to sling it off your index or middle finger so that it has a ton of rotation. And you want to throw it as parallel and as close to the level of the surface of the water.
I mean, I think that's all accurate. This middle finger stuff's blowing my mind, though. I'm all index finger.
No, I'm all index finger too.
I'm all index as well. I was just,
Okay.
Some people might not have an index finger, and I'm not trying to be ableist or anything.
Okay, all right.
So the world record holder for most skips is I'm getting conflicting sources here. I'm having a hard time finding one.
I call myself a level 7 skipper. I can get that every once in a while, but usually I'm in the 3 to 5 range.
I've definitely broken a dozen before, but it's rare. You have to have a
how
right
do you
body.
count it once it starts hydroplaning? Because that happens to me every once in a while. Like, is that?
I need to see distinct.
Integrate by parts or something.
No, I need to see distinct rings of impact for me. Which obviously they merge but they can't. It needs to leave the water surface and hit again for it to count as a skip.
Otherwise, it's a plane.
Exactly. Yeah.
See, they didn't go into any of this. This is why
I need an article by Sawyer and Finn.
Yeah.
Okay, so I watched a video on the science of stone skipping a while ago. That was put up by Wired, and Kurt Steiner is the current world record holder, at least as of 4 years ago. And his record is 88 times. And in the video that I'll link to the show notes to sciencesort.com, it talks a little bit, if I remember correctly, I didn't rewatch the video before talking about this article, but if I remember correctly, there's a theoretical upper limit.
Wait, are we talking Earth gravity here?
No, I think the theoretical upper limit has to do with if you want to get a stone to skip more than 88 times, the speed and force of the spin would be such that the rock itself might not be able to hold together. So you reach the upper limit of the forces that can be, the rotational force of the rock gets so high that the rock itself pulls itself apart.
We need to look for materials with very high tensile strength then.
So you're suggesting some sort of carbon fiber based stone skipping competition?
Yeah.
Maybe.
I think there's something cool about the fact that it's a natural product that we're using in this competition. Like this Steiner guy, who's the world record holder, he's got a collection. I mean, he goes through his collection of rocks, and they're almost they're larger than I expected, and they're very, very flat and quite thin, which is very distinct from the types of stones.
You know how an ice skater really starts spinning when she pulls her arms in?
Yeah.
Can we design a carbon fiber puck with weight on the outside? The second it releases your hand, it pulls all those weights to the center.
Interesting. Yeah, that's an interesting idea. I
don't know if that's gonna. I see. So it's still the surface area stays the same. It's just
it's internal weights, like 6 of them. And then they all slide into the center.
Sort of it needs some weight on the outs. I mean, because it's going to impact. I feel like that's going to. Because I'm assuming it does hit not completely flat, right? There's going to be an edge that hits first, and I feel like there needs to be some weight on that, or it's not going to work right.
Well, if you don't want to be my shark, I'll find a different one.
Well, I see what you're saying, Charlie. That is interesting. We haven't really talked about. None of these articles talk about the water, right? Like obviously you want a flat body of water.
You want Thoreau. You want Walden's Pond.
I need distilled water.
That's cheating.
You probably do want a little salt content to increase the density.
Yeah,
the Dead Sea, you can float like a manatee in that thing.
Well, I think manatees are pretty floatable.
Manatees are more similar to the shape that these other experts say you should be skipping.
That's why the analogy works.
So what this article
I'd say you can float like a lead weight in there.
I didn't catch the like. I just thought you said you could float a manatee.
Oh, you could. It's not wrong.
Well, there was that one species of Serenian, what was it called, Patrick? The giant one that lived in northern
stellar sea cow.
Stellar sea cow. Yeah, there was a stellar sea cow, Charlie, that was so big and had so much blubber because it lived up in like the Arctic waters between Russia and Alaska that it probably couldn't submerge even if it wanted to, which made it easy pickings for hungry Russian sailors.
Ooh.
And apparently they were also delicious, but we will never know.
No.
So I do want to talk about the distinction in the type of rock they're suggesting here, and they're basically saying that like a potato-shaped stone has a curvature that causes more of the rock to enter the water as it's skimming along the surface, which creates more force being pushed back against the stone by the water itself, which is what causes it to get one big skip relative to a flatter stone, which isn't going to get as much force on that first leap. Am I getting that right?
Yep. Newton's third law.
That's the one.
Yeah. Have you guys skipped some crazy rocks?
Yeah, I mean, that's, you eventually you get so good when you're a Patrick in his 20s, you do start just trying crazy shapes.
Particularly, mid to late 20s, 2 a.m. at night, maybe under the influence, and you're down by the water. You can skip like chunks of concrete. And they do just get that one big bounce.
So I guess the question then becomes, which is more satisfying? One big skip and then a kersplash, or many skips that peter out? For me personally, the most satisfying is when you're on like a decently wide river that's, flowing gently enough that you can skip, and it's to get it all the way across. And I hear the clink of it hitting the rocks on the far shore.
That's a good feeling.
That's pretty nice.
That's my personal. So I like the many small skips ending in a shore dismount. Yeah,
I mean, I feel like the novelty of skipping a weirdly shaped rock can be satisfying, but I'm not. But
it does feel like you're changing the rules on the game with your buddies. Yeah. You'd be like, "Well, I skipped this one big time." It's like, well, that's not what we were doing. We were all trying to skip one the most times.
Yeah. When I'm on my deathbed, I'm going to remember the pretty ones, right?
Mm-hmm.
Not the big dumb ones.
Not the potato ones.
Yeah.
Now, when I was a lifeguard at a pool in West Virginia, what we would try to do, and this is me and Jacob and some of our buddies, so Jacob, from previous episodes of the show, we actually tested this potato-shaped theory. Kids, do not try this at home, but before the non-lifeguard crowds arrived to use the pool for swimming and leisure, we teenage lifeguards would run, which, again, do not run around the pool. We were being dumb teenagers. We would run at the pool as fast as we could because the water's like perfectly flat in the morning before anyone started swimming. So we'd run as fast as we could and then try to jump as shallow as possible. So we were jumping as much horizontally as possible, and then like fling ourselves onto our backs and wrap ourselves up into grab your knees and try to skip ourselves across the pool on our backs. And it did not work.
Yeah, I was about to say, I can't imagine that be successful.
Yeah, you gotta go full like spread eagle and use your belly. You gotta duck skip it.
I don't think that would work. I think your head would get in the way.
I think you need to be launched out of like a Barnum and Bailey's cannon.
I think we weren't going fast enough. I think that was the problem. I mean, I think because obviously, people, like when people are barefoot water skiing, they can like pop down onto their back and do like a full rotation and then pop back up on their bare feet. And again, and when I was in my prime rock skipping days, I was also a pretty decent water skier, and I never quite got good enough to go barefoot water skiing, but you do need to go a lot faster to barefoot water ski than just regular water ski, because obviously you have a lot less surface area to displace the water and keep you pushed up, I guess, would be the balancing of that equation.
Yeah, you just need to interact with equal and opposite amount of mass to make you float, and so the skis interact with much more mass per unit time. And so to equal the same amount of surface area and therefore mass, you need to make the time step a lot shorter. Does that make any sense? Think of driving in the rain, right? You hit way more raindrops when you're driving fast.
I believe the Mythbusters did an episode on that.
Is that wrong? How is that wrong?
No, that's not wrong. I just don't see a
cross-sectional area multiplied by mass by velocity. What the hell?
Yeah. Okay.
What are we doing here?
It's okay, Charlie.
Getting riled up.
I thought you were going to say you're a lot more likely to hydroplane when you're going fast than when you're going slow. That's what you're going to say too. So then you threw me with how many raindrops I'm going to hit.
Talking about how much water you're hitting with your feet.
Okay.
Now, what if could you? I guess the rock has to be curved on the surface that's hitting the water, because if you had like a potato-shaped rock that was perfectly flat on one side, and you tried to get that side to be the side of impact.
I don't think that's
No, I can get them to skip on just a big flat surface. Like I can skip a chunk of like sidewalk concrete.
Right. What I'm saying is there's no real way to circle the square here. You can't get the best of both worlds. You're either getting one big mega bounce and a kersploosh, or you're getting many small skips. Right? Because I think
you can get that real nice first skip that goes far.
Yeah,
what are your thoughts, Patrick? You've been a little mum here.
I think with the smaller rock, you can get multiple skips even if it is potato shaped sometimes.
It's almost like more of a BB than a. That was the other thought I had. Is there are many different sizes and shapes of potatoes. It's one of the more diverse vegetables in terms of size and shape. Julie and I have signed up for a CSA, a community supported agriculture, whatever it is.
Yeah.
Some of the potatoes we get, they're huge. They're football shaped. They're not spherical enough. I don't think they would skip very well. Because I also don't think. I mean, how do you throw a football underhand such that it's
this article's got a lot of problems. What exactly is a potato?
I think I have to imagine the researchers are thinking like a nice, relatively smooth, waxy Yukon Gold, right? Not a big russet, not a big sweet potato. I know sweet potatoes aren't technically potatoes. They're
not one of those purple fingerlings. I hate those. They taste completely different too. Get that out of my salad.
I think fingerlings are too irregularly shaped. I think the axis of rotation could get messed up by the first, I don't know that you can spin it in such a way where you're going to get the right point of impact.
I don't know. I think well, maybe I don't really follow the math here, but I think the point of this is like the skip, assuming you hit the water correctly, right? The first skip is going to be very, I guess, proportionally to the roundness of the point where it impacts.
But then why wouldn't you just want a perfect sphere?
I don't know.
Okay. Like a BB or a ball bearing.
Yeah.
I feel like a ball bearing fired out of like a slingshot.
Unless it's just too hard, unless it's hard to throw. But I think, if you could fire it off out of a gadget like that, then
I guess some sort of slingshot that gives it rotational energy as well. Maybe like the sling that David used to kill Goliath, but he was using stones.
Right. Yeah, that might
from the
work.
river. So he's probably using skipping stones,
or
not potatoes.
A bullet, right? That's rifling. It's going to be rotating.
Rifling is rotating it
in the wrong direction.
Yeah, it's not rotating it. It's rotating it like
perpendicular to the direction you want it to be.
Yes. It's spinning it like the hands of a clock, not the record player.
Yeah, I probably need a sling. But I don't even know if it's perfectly spherical, I don't even know if that matters. Maybe it does. I don't know.
Yeah, there's some probably optimum curvature that like displaces the maximum amount of water per unit mass.
We really should have
what they actually calculated. They probably said something pretty like bacristochrone or something, or teardrop shape, and everybody's like, what? And they go, potato. And we said, okay.
So you think the popular press is misconstruing?
No, I think
they would never do that.
I think they probably got forced into saying potato shape to the press. But let's see. What does that paper say? If I search this paper...
No, it's a direct quote from the first author. Dr. Ryan Palmer says, try some wacky stones and see what happens. Try and throw a stone that looks like a potato. You can get some fun things happening with heavier stones.
Yeah, but if you do like a search in the PDF...
There's no potato in the PDF.
Right, exactly.
Yes, that's correct. We've got a real no potato PDF on our hands. Well, what do you think? I mean, we all have kids. Are any of your kids into skipping stones now that we've moved past our prime of it in our own lives? How do we apply this to our roles as dads?
Right.
What's the application of this cutting edge research?
I don't know. I feel like Kieran would get into it now.
Now, if he knew potatoes were involved, because you gave him an Irish name, is that?
No, I just think it's been a while since we tried skipping any stones. I feel like he might go for it. Although he might, I don't know. I feel like it can be a frustrating exercise, right? If it takes a little while to get it. And so it's not very much fun when you're not getting a stone to skip. Right?
Yeah, I was trying to teach some college kids this weekend that happened to be at the beach. It was rough.
I don't know if you should admit.
One young woman got it.
Yeah.
Violet was having some issues, my daughter, because she's left-handed, so I was trying to throw them left-handed.
I'm left-handed, but I skip stones right-handed. So I think you might just need to teach her the right-handed technique, Charlie.
Hey, fellow scientists, I sent you a picture of a bacristochrone on the Slack. I think that might be it.
So this is like the geometric version of a brachiopow? It's got the same root at the front of it.
It's the shape in which an object falling a certain height and traveling a certain distance x can reach the point most quickly. So you could go like straight down with a little ramp at the bottom and then go all the way over, or you could go like a perfect line from point A to B. But that little bacristochrone shape it will cause it to go from A to B the fastest in a gravitational field.
What's the difference in this and a parabola?
It is a very special parabola.
Special,
Patrick.
Parabola. I like that.
Yeah, that depends on the gravitational field.
It's a cool word. I like it. The curve of fastest descent between 2 points.
Crone means time. I don't know what the rest means.
Brachy means arm.
Arm time.
Arm time. If you skipped leg day, make sure you still leave time for arm time.
Yeah. Oh, man. That would tie in with slinging rocks with your arm.
Apparently, okay. Arm so time. Apparently, according to Wiktionary, brachystos is, so it's not brachy, it's brachystos, and it's shortest, and then chronos for time. So it's the shortest time. This has nothing to do with our beloved brachy. How dare you?
No potatoes.
Nor potatoes, that's right. Well, I will admit I'm often thinking about what is the shortest amount of time before I eat another potato.
They are delicious.
In some way, shape, or form. It's one of the more versatile vegetables.
Is it?
Yeah.
I guess.
I feel like this is well covered by doctors Ganges and Baggins.
Right.
Oh, I thought you were going to say pollen.
With
Botany of Desire, potatoes, and corn, and some other stuff.
Man, that Golem's a real second reviewer, am I right?
Reviewer number 3.
Oh, yeah.
Terrible joke. Well, of all the things you can use potatoes for, one that Samwise Ganges does not mention when he's boiling and mashing them and sticking them in a stew is you can let yeast ferment them into ethanol and then distill that fermented product into vodka, which is a drink you can have if you want. And if you are having some vodka, you may hear a description of that beverage, mixed or otherwise, in our next segment. What are we drinking? Coming up next. It would not be an episode of Science Sort of if we didn't also talk about what we are drinking. Patrick, we wouldn't want yours to get warm, so why don't you go first?
All right. Well, in the interest of nostalgia and potatoes, I guess, I'm drinking Guinness, which is what I drank on the very first one.
That's hilarious.
It's very... I mean, I don't know.
I was worried you're going with vodka. I was like, it better be from the Ukraine.
No, you could hear the little tst of him opening the bottle. He's going with a bottled Guinness, not a canned Guinness.
Yeah, I actually thought I bought the widget bottles, but I didn't. So they're just normal bottles.
You know what? The last time I got Guinness, I went with the foreign export, the extra stout.
Yeah, how was that?
I mean, it's like it's darker and richer. It's carbonated. They don't even like try to pretend to nitrogenate it, and I think it's like 7-something%. It tastes more like an American craft beer stout. And there are certainly times where like the classic low ABV nitrogen Guinness is exactly what I want. But
yeah, well, I thought this might be a 2-drink show, so I went with a low alcohol.
But I made an Irish style stew a couple weeks back, I thought about putting beer in the stew, and then I didn't at the last minute. I kept the beer reserved for drinking.
Yeah, I made with red wine. It was good.
I don't think I used any alcohol in mine. It was just lambs, potatoes, parsnips, and carrots.
No rutabagas or swede.
It might have been. You know what? It might have been a rutabaga instead of a parsnip. I think I'm misremembering my parsnip adventures, and it was actually a rutabaga, or as you correctly give the alternate name, a swede.
I think I used parsnips and rutabagas in mine.
Wow,
the rutabagas take forever to cook, or at least the ones I used did.
The ones, again, similar to the sweet potatoes, the rutabagas we get from our CSA are gigantic.
Yeah.
Almost like locally grown vegetables are better. I don't know. That's just an opinion. It's not science. I have no science to back that up. Charlie, you want to go next, or should I go next with my very underwhelming beverage for this evening?
How about you go, since you're under the weather?
Is it water?
No, I'm having maximum strength acetaminophen, dextromethorphan, and guanfenazine and phenylephrine HCl.
Is this NyQuil?
Yeah, well, it's a NyQuil type product. I'm not gonna buzz market on the show, but
Dude, we don't have the kind of money on this show to afford NyQuil.
Well, I'm at my parents' place, and so I wasn't feeling great leading up to showtime. And I think this counts as a drink because it's like it has effects. But I made the somewhat risky decision to go rifling through my parents' medicine drawers and see what I could find. And I know they listened, but I kind of knew the general area my mom keeps this kind of stuff, so I wasn't too worried. But yeah, I found some maximum strength mucus relief, cold, flu, and sore throat medicine, and I had a little bit before the show. I'm gonna have a little bit during the show, and that is my drink, my little nurse's cap, nurse's cup, nurse's cap. The cap of the bottle, it's a cup shaped object. It's what I need to keep going. It's not what I wanted to have. I have a nice imperial stout in the fridge that I was very excited to have, but I decided if I wanted to survive all the way through to the end of the recording, I probably needed to focus on a more medicinal product than a beer.
Got it.
That makes sense.
What about you, Sir Charles?
You don't have any Underberg laying around or something?
I have some at home in DC, but I don't stock my parents' bar with Underberg.
You can go with the hot toddy.
If you want me to fall asleep, I'll probably make a hot toddy after this to go to bed. Hot toddies knock me out.
All right.
Good to know.
Any alcohol in general knocks me out.
Yeah.
No, something about hot alcohol that makes me much more tired and sleepy tired than cold alcohol.
Yeah. Hot alcohol always makes me wish I hadn't.
My in-laws make a delicious Swedish mulled wine in the form of glögg that is delightful, and I look forward to every Yule time with the mulling spices wafting throughout the house. It's great beverage. But
it smells good.
It smells really good. Charlie, what are you doing?
I am in a cannabis legal state, and let me just preface this that I am well over age 25, which you should probably limit your cannabis use if you're younger than 25 because your frontal lobe is still developing.
We've given up on Charlie's, so
yeah. Mine is developed all that it can.
So it's time to start the undeveloping process.
Yeah. So I'm drinking a Rogue Brewery recreational seltzer, ginger yuzu flavored. And it's got a little good stuff in it.
I think you've had that before. Maybe not that exact flavor, but I feel like you've had that Rogue product before.
That's it pouring into a glass. It
Quite
sounds like water.
I thought maybe you left your mic on when you went to the bathroom.
That'd be quite the urethra. All right. Opposite of Hank Hill's. That's a dated reference for all you youngins out there.
I feel like King of the Hill has had enough of a resurgent popularity that people might know that. We got all the Gen Zers watching Friends.
Oh, that's just because it's
God help them.
But that show that paints an entirely realistic portrayal of life in your 20s.
Apartment sizes in New York. Yes.
Apartment sizes in New York. How many people you should date in your 20s. I always think about that. Like, they go through an insane number of partners in those shows.
Well, I guess it's just fantasy for them because they have no money and there's a pandemic.
That's true. One of my favorite moments in Friends is when they're all at the coffee shop and they're talking about their bosses. And they're talking about how, like, none of their bosses like them. They're like, yeah, my boss doesn't like me. And Ross says something like, maybe it's just universal that, like, bosses don't like their employees. And Joey, who doesn't have a job at the moment because he's an actor, says, or maybe it's because you're all sitting around having coffee at 11 a.m. on a Wednesday. And they all get up and leave to go to work. And,
nice. You guys got any more friends jokes? Let's go. Let's just do that for the next half an hour.
I
Sorry,
must.
Ryan. That was mean of me. But no
it's
more,
okay.
no more friends.
We could just skip to the end and say pivot louder and louder
Yep,
and louder.
That is a classic.
What are we doing? So we're all drinking now.
Is it time to pivot?
It's time to shake, rattle, and roll, or maybe shake, rattle, and rumble.
Rocks and shocks.
Because the thing that produces thunder can now be redirected with lasers, and we're talking about that next. Scientists, those pesky scientists, they're at it again, you guys. The scientists, they just can't be stopped. And this time, you know what they've done? You're not going to believe it. These scientists set up, as Patrick said in the break, a frickin' laser beam on a mountain in Switzerland and fired it into the sky to direct the trajectory of lightning. I don't know if I'm using the right words here, but you guys know what I'm saying,
exactly.
Right?
I think I know what you're.
It's a little confusing.
We're trying to move the lightning.
They're trying to get the lightning to go away from them and their structures that they would like to have not struck by lightning. So this is like an observatory on the top of a mountain in Switzerland. And we put these very sensitive observatories up on the tops of mountains because there's literally less atmosphere in between you and the objects you're trying to look at. But it also means you're closer to where the lightning comes from, which are clouds. And lightning rod technology has made these environments safer for humans. I don't really know how a lightning rod works. Maybe that's something we can talk about a little bit, and then get into how they've upgraded that situation with freaking laser beams. Charlie, do you know how a lightning rod works?
So lightning is a static charge in the atmosphere due to water particles and ice particles rubbing against each other, and it creates a positive static charge, much like rubbing a balloon on your head of hair. And this causes a electrical field, an electrical gradient. So we have these positive charges in the sky, and then we have neutral on the earth. And nature abhors a gradient, and so it tries to get rid of it by equalizing that. The problem is the air is terribly non-conductive, so an electric current won't flow through it very easily. So these charges can grow to enormous potential such that the air itself can become conductive. And that's what a lightning bolt is. And they originate at the ground usually and reach up from the ground. And
they kind of meet in the middle, right?
They kind of meet in the middle. But where lightning strikes, it's wherever it originated it. I guess I'm just trying to, Zeus is not throwing something at you. You are throwing something. It's like Harry Potter and Voldemort, like throwing the wands to each other. So let me just say something real simple.
Okay.
Lightning finds the path of least resistance.
That's what I was going to ask.
The easiest way to connect the sky to the ground. And so a lightning rod says, here's a piece of ground that's super easy for you to find, sky.
Not because it's metal, by the way. Apparently lightning doesn't care if something's metal or not.
Yeah, I guess once the air is arcing, then it's looking for shortest distance, and conductivity will help, and that's certainly what's going on with these lasers.
So the reason that lightning bolts have like a crackly shape is because the electrical charge is trying to find the easiest way. Essentially, it's like a stream flowing down a mountain, right? It's trying to find the easiest path down, and it's almost like electrical plinko between the atoms of the air. Is that a decent analogy, Charlie?
Works for me.
And so the role that lasers play here is when we are talking about lasers, these are, I guess I should say, I first came across this story from an article in Motherboard by Becky Ferreira, and the scientific article being referenced is Laser Guided Lightning, which is maybe the best 2-word paper title I've ever seen. Long list of authors, but the 2 corresponding authors are Aurélien Howard and Jean-Pierre Wolff, and this was in Nature Photonics. And they are the first team to install a very powerful laser at this observatory in the Swiss Alps and try to use this laser to ionize the air. And so essentially they're kind of creating a gutter ball for the laser or the lightning, right? They're creating like the path of least resistance through ionized air, because ionized air has a charge to it, right, Charlie? So it's attracting the beam, the strike, because of the charged air. They're giving it air that is a much better conductor than typical air.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Yeah, so the laser heats the air up to such a high temperature that it acquires the fourth state of matter, which is plasma. So you have solid, liquid, gas, and then plasma. Plasmas are ionized material, and ionized means the electrons are stripped from the atoms itself, or one of the electrons. Atoms can have several electrons, and so that creates an electrical current, because now you have electrons that can flow freely. That's a negative charge, and you have ions, positively charged atoms, that can flow freely, and so it becomes wonderfully conductive. And that's in a sense what lightning's doing too. It's creating a plasma out of the air. And so what we're doing by throwing that laser and
lightning the air.
We're like, here's a free space. Like, it's a chutes and ladders. You're like, here's like a log flume
for your electricity to go down, as opposed to going down the windy mountain stream.
Yeah.
My analogies are all over the place today, but I've been reading a lot about the history of logging in West Virginia and how they used to get the logs before railroads to the timber processing places. And so
there was an article in the New York Times 2 weeks ago that said loggers are the happiest workers in the world.
Oh, well, you're in the right state. Sure.
Do you not feel like when you're chopping wood, you're in a pretty good place?
That's all I did Christmas break or holiday break. Forgive me. I don't know who needs to forgive me for saying Christmas.
Jesus needs to forgive you. The winter solstice break, you chopped a lot of wood?
Yeah, Yuletide. I just...
You say it like an Alabama fan, but of the holiday...
Yuletide! There was an insanely high tide.
Now, did you have a splitting maul, or what was your axe situation?
Well, I don't like to cut down living trees, so I wait for a windfall, and then I buck them up with an electric chainsaw for about a half an hour, and then I get upset with it and get a gas chainsaw.
Oh, no.
Oh, really? Oh, yes. And then...
You're cutting up carbon sequestering trees with a fossil fuel powered device?
I try to use electric as long as I can.
I feel like is it just the battery charging that kills you?
Yeah, I only have 2 batteries, and it runs out, and then it takes forever to charge.
I've got a lot, but yeah, you run through them quickly when you're.
Can we get you a solar powered electric chainsaw?
My electric one has a better bar and a sharper, but yeah, I need to figure that out.
And do either of you know the origin of the chainsaw as a tool? What they were originally used for? It's gross.
Oh, bones.
Cows.
Bones. Patrick's right. It was for amputations.
Oh.
Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah, and then I just use the traditional wood axe, a splitting axe, not a maul. So I prefer...
A little lighter than a maul.
Yeah, I prefer much lighter with a very long handle. I like the 7 skips. I don't want the big hit.
Right. You want to use the torque of the lever arm as your friend rather than the mass of the head.
Yeah, and then I can make 9 or so chops along the round, and then hit it once really hard at the end, and then it just falls into to 10 pieces perfectly.
Buying an axe was one of my COVID self-care purchases.
Yeah. So yeah, loggers apparently are the happiest.
I don't know. I have mixed feelings about that because I feel like if I had to eat that many pancakes, I wouldn't be that happy. But I guess they're burning enough calories that it doesn't matter. I
don't know what else they eat. Yeah, pancakes.
I mean, I grew up in Oregon. They eat cigarettes and coffee. That's it.
I was today years old as of a couple of days ago when I realized that the ski mountain I spent a lot of time on as a kid growing up in West Virginia, Snowshoe Mountain, that part of the state, was a big part of the timber boom from like 1910 to 1920. And I started figuring it out when I noticed that the brewery in Elkins is Big Timber and the brewery in Davis is Stumptown. I'm sensing a theme. And then the runs at Snowshoe have all these weird names like Gandy Dancer and Ball Hooter and Hootenanny and Skip Jump and Knot Bumper. And I finally hit me. I was like, oh, these are probably all logging terms. I just felt like such a doofus for never putting that together.
Yep.
So maybe I would. So I mean, Charlie, I think I would have been happier if I'd known those terms, which I would have known those terms if I was a logger. So I think by the transitive property, you're correct.
Yeah. Don't know where to go with that.
So how do you guys feel about lightning? Are you excited by the potential? I mean, I feel like the lightning rod. It's not a thing that most people, most residential buildings outside of major urban areas have. So I've never had a lightning rod on a home that I've lived in, I don't think.
Yeah. So I think this is really overkill. Making obviously kind of AI driven targeting system laser throughout to intercept lightning bolts or cause lightning to fall down. How often is the lightning happening? How much does this system cost? Well, it has to be a very specialized thing. So yes, observatories on top of mountaintops makes sense, but this is wild.
Well, I read recently that Walt Disney World was basically the lightning capital of North America.
The one in Orlando?
So I could see something.
Yeah.
The one next to where we put all of our rocket launching facilities? That seems like a poorly designed system.
Right.
Tropics.
So, either the rocket launching facility or Walt Disney World itself, I could see maybe deciding the investment was worth it.
How much energy? I mean, in terms of energy use, how much more energy does it take to power a laser this powerful as opposed to having a lightning rod on your building?
I have no idea. They said 50 meters of air. That's half of a freedom unit, I think.
What's a freedom unit?
Football field.
Oh, I didn't know that.
I just made that up.
Pretty clever.
What? So yeah, 50 meters of air, and you'd have to heat it up to what, 2,000 degrees Celsius. So you'd take the mass of that column of air, multiplied by the heat capacity of air, and multiply that by 2,000. So going to be a big number.
But they're not firing a continuous blast of laser. They're pulsing it.
Yeah, but you still have to plasmify that air, and that's why I did it by the mass of air, not the laser, because I don't know how long the laser goes, but I know that the air has to heat by that much to turn into a plasma.
So the laser they used was capable of delivering laser pulses at 1,030 nanometers with 720 megajoules of energy per pulse. A pulse duration.
What's the megajoules? That's what we need.
720.
720 megajoules. Okay. Yeah, so that
pulse duration of 920 femtoseconds at a repetition rate of 1 kilohertz.
That is 100 kilowatt hours. So that's the amount of energy your house uses for 3 days all at once.
Okay. So it seems like this might be a pretty specialized system for particularly sensitive places like mountaintop observatories and rocket launching facilities.
Yeah, I guess.
Which I'm okay with.
I mean, I was off by a factor of 2.
But once we get that fusion reactor up and running, that everybody's talking about.
I gotta guard myself against the Patreons and the Redditors that will be
no, our Patreons are kind and lovely people. How dare you? Okay. Never. They would say, please, sir, consider this correction.
Yeah, true. Very
and we're not on Reddit, so you don't have to worry about that. And
good.
We're not. We are on Space Karen's bird app. But I saw somebody else refer to him as Space Karen, and I'm cribbing that. It's not an original joke to me, but I did think it was funny. What is the closest either of you have been to getting struck by lightning?
50 feet, maybe 40 feet. I've seen it like hit the like house across the street from me, and that was loud.
Yeah.
I don't think I've ever been that close.
I was standing outside of my own home when it was struck by lightning.
Wow.
I was one of my chores growing up was to mow the yard, and I was supposed to do that over the weekend, and so I would normally put it off until later in the day Sunday because I didn't want to do it earlier than that. And so I was out mowing the lawn when a thunderstorm was clearly gathering, and did not heed those warnings because I was an angry teenager and just wanted to get this chore that I didn't like doing done. So I was out mowing on a fairly steep hill while rain was starting to come down, which introduces a slipping risk with a giant spinning metal blade. So I was making a lot of bad choices.
Wow.
But the
I'm glad you're still here with us.
Ryan. I know, right? So I was on if you were staring at my house from the street, I was on the left side of my house in sort of the left side yard, and the lightning struck the chimney on the right side of the house and blew a bunch of the bricks from the chimney into the yard.
Wow.
Dang.
And it was terrifying.
Blasted bricks.
Yeah. So one of our dogs who was in the house was very scared of thunderstorms for the remainder of her life.
There was 2 lightning bolts by my house last night. It's pretty exciting. It made me have a lightning dream.
Did you get out the laser pointer and try to guide them safely?
No, dude, it was even nerdier. I decided to get on my one wheel because it has a rubber tire. I was going around town in my dream. And that's how you kill a podcast.
Nothing makes you more relatable than
talking about your own dreams, and your dreams are absolutely.
Is that a unicycle?
No, the one wheel's like it's like looks like a skateboard, but it's got one giant wheel in the middle for tech bro douchebags. No, it's cut that, Rob. That was overly mean.
That's fine.
It's got the one giant rubber wheel in the middle. What's the distance on that thing, Charlie? How far can you go before you run out and have to walk home like a sucker?
Or do you carry your chainsaw batteries with you and swap them out?
I've thought about hot wiring some batteries to it. About 25 miles. It's 20 to 30 depending on how robust you are.
That's a long way.
Yeah, it's great for like less than 10 cents worth of electricity.
And it's got so much storage capacity. It's like whatever you can fit in a backpack on your back.
Yeah.
I shouldn't tease. I'm getting ready to take advantage of the legislation going through DC City Council for an e-bike rebate. So if any of you out there in the Paleo Posse have recommendations for e-bikes, I am in the market.
I have hot wired my chainsaw batteries to my e-bike.
So you can chainsaw while e-biking? What's the purpose here?
Because my e-bike was limited at like 48 volts, and it can only go like 20 miles an hour, but I knew my chainsaw was 56 volts. So I was like, I can increase my speed by 50% or not quite 50%, but now I can go like 30 miles an hour.
Yeah, I don't need, I'm interested in how you did that. I'm not really interested in going faster, but I am interested in longer range. Yeah.
Do you have an e-bike right now?
Put the batteries in parallel.
So I remember you used to have a scooter.
I did, yeah.
And then that ate it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm ready for the e-bike revolution. Well, to wrap up this article, I would say it is a cool thing to have on your resume that like I redirected a lightning bolt with a laser.
Yeah, that's of course.
Credit where credit's due for that. I'll be curious to see if this ever sort of gets. If there's ever an application of this that's more than this, very specific use case scenario, and if it actually, I don't know if there's like a bunch of people out there clamoring to develop this beyond just a really well, placed lightning rod, but it's cool.
It's super cool. Now they like in Blade Runner 2070, what is it? Blade Runner 2047 or something? Yeah. Cyberpunk 2077. Blade Runner with Ryan Gosling. If they redid all those scenes with the buildings and the lightning going all over the place, now have a bunch of lasers coming out the buildings.
Wow, man. I can't wait for the planetarium laser light show with the Pink Floyd and whatever Charlie's drinking.
Yeah, this thought brought to you by Rogue Beverages.
Well, I already solicited the Paleo Posse for feedback, so we should mosey on over to the part of the podcast where we take that feedback and spit it back out at the folks who fed it to us in the first place, and that is called the PaleoPOW. PaleoPOW is a segment of the show where we delight in feedback from our listeners. And one of the most delightful kinds of feedback is about to be brought to us by our friend Patrick.
Yeah. So I've got a review, and it's from Peachy Jess with a peach emoji.
Our Parakeelope is named Peaches.
Name. Yeah. The title of the review is Super Duper Awesome. It's 5 stars. My favorite kind of review. And the body of the review says, very interesting. Listen to the one about ERP-O compatibility. Banter is fun. So thank you for that, Peachy Jess. And I'll mention that Peachy Jess is in Canada. So thanks for listening up there in the Great White North.
Where's that?
I mean, you're close enough that you might be able to reach it with your one wheel, Charlie.
I am more north than 50% of Canada's population. I learned that horrifying fact recently.
Well, yeah, most of Canada's population is in like a string of cities
Detroit.
right along the U.S. border.
All right.
Charlie, why don't you take us into a bit of a longer piece of feedback?
All right. This piece comes from Gerrit. Let's see what's going on here. Solar-powered cars, synthetic fuels, and nuclear ships rambling. Man, this is really going to test my reading skills. I'm having like some third grade flashbacks right now.
Don't you read aloud all the time now? I feel like you get a lot better.
Are you saying that because he's a father or because he's a college professor?
No, because he's a father.
Listen up, class.
I was listening to your latest episode. That's 342 in reference to this email. The extinction of fossil fuels. While trying to work on a data analysis for my thesis and felt compelled to write in. This is a topic that is right up my alley, and I actively work on making the episode's title a reality. A buddy of mine actually just bought me a fiddle since I constantly say I want to fiddle on the grave of the last coal plant. I just got a fiddle too.
Wow, you're also working in the energy field? Man, you two hipsters really have a lot in common.
Yeah. Anyways, in the episode, Ryan brought up solar-powered cars and asked why we don't have them. There are actually solar car races. There's a website, AmericanSolarChallenge.org, and even a solar-powered airplane, Smithsonian Magazine Innovation, Inside First Solar-Powered Flight and World, and then some other gibberish internet stuff. You will notice, though, that the vehicles are very small, light, and bare. They also are not very capable. This just comes down to the basic physics of solar power. You get, at best, 1 kilowatt per square meter of sunlight, and then can convert that to 200 watts of electrical power with typical solar panels. That means they're about 20% efficient, right? If you get clouds or live far from the equator, this number will be lower, down to 0 at night. Storms, obviously. Now, a car has roughly 9.3 square meters of upward-facing area, but not all of that is usable since we need windows. Call it 6 square meters of area for round numbers. This translates to 1.2 kilowatts of electric power at best from your solar panels, or a measly 1.609 horsepower. Math checks out. Wait. Yeah. Yes, math checks out. I assume you can see the problem here. Now add in the cost of the solar panels and the damage that they could take, reducing their effectiveness, and there's little point in trying a pure solar-powered car. There are electrics with solar panels on the roof for a little bit of a trickle charge, but the best way to have solar-powered cars is to have a big array on the ground that you can charge with your car. I don't know, it'd work great on Mercury, I think. In this episode, y'all also talked about how hard...
Wait, isn't Mercury tidally locked, though? So you'd only work on half of Mercury?
It isn't tidally... Is it tidally locked? I think it does something weird where one rotation is 1 year. I guess that does mean it's tidally locked.
Ah, gotcha.
I'm not sure, though. I forget.
Sorry, didn't mean to interrupt.
In this episode, you all also talked about how hard aviation is to decarbonize. One thing I'm really interested in on that front is synthetic fuels. There are many groups that have been able to make jet fuel from electricity, water, and CO2, so the fuel ends up carbon neutral. Another link.
I'll put all these in the show notes on sciencesort.com.
It isn't as good as carbon-free, but aviation is hard. It is also not the biggest polluter, so permanently cycling that much carbon around probably isn't the worst thing. I would agree with all that. I would say let's use the magical hydrocarbons for magical things like flying and making pharmaceuticals. There's carbon negative proposal for nuclear-powered synthetic aviation fuel production, though, another website. The final thing I wanted to mention that you may find interesting in this workshop is this workshop I was part of last year. He links to a national lab workshop on fission batteries. We had people from the shipping industry attend and talk about things they're looking at for decarbonizing. Hydrogen and ammonia fuel were both discussed, as well as nuclear-powered ships. They seemed extremely interested in the nuclear route for the big ships, since the reactor is much smaller than the big engines and fuel tanks currently used. You could apparently even drive faster since the ship ends up lighter and sure isn't fuel limited. It's all pretty neat stuff, and after I may try to get involved when I graduate. Keep up the kick $$ work. After I write this, I'm going to figure out Patreon and become a supporter. Gerrit. Man, we need to get you on the show to talk about some of this stuff.
Yeah, right. Gerrit, that was awesome breakdown of the stuff that you're working on and your perspective on the stuff we talked about in that episode.
Well, I guess there's somebody in Europe's putting out a commercially available car covered in solar panels.
It's called the Atera, spelled like APTERA. The P is silent because it means wingless.
I was thinking of the Scion, S-I-O-N.
Okay. Well, there is also a solar-powered car called the Atera.
Interesting.
Which I think we even talked about on the show before when we had my buddy Tony Munoz on. So yeah, there are people working on it for like essentially smart car level, very small urban transport solutions.
I mean, I think this is a normal like normal sized European car, which is a tiny U.S. car.
Right.
But
and folks should know that Patrick hates cars now.
Yeah, if you I haven't been on the show in a while, so everybody may not know that.
Listen, everybody, Patrick hates cars. He thinks they're bad and that cities should be, I don't know, like walkable and like people focused. It's pretty radical stuff.
Yeah, I do think that
I'm in your wake on that, Patrick. I'm trailing behind you, not too far off. So I'm only teasing you because my own views are shifting into that direction as well.
No,
right.
I wrote that for the city I live in, Bellingham's climate action plan. I got accused on Nextdoor.com of being a utopist. I have my heads in the clouds. Somebody called me airy fairy. I don't know what that means. Just because I didn't want people driving on a certain street, turn it into commercial and nice place to hang out. Also, I said no more gas stoves. That's what people got really upset about. That's all in vogue now. 3 years later, people go nuts on that topic.
Yeah, but I do think especially in North America, we design our cities for cars, mostly for people who don't even live in that city. So that's crazy.
You know that famous picture of the Earth at night, the mosaic that NASA put together? You can see all the like streetlights everywhere. If you zoom in,
North Korea.
Yeah, I mean that's just a conspiracy. Mm-hmm. If you zoom in, you can see the structure of different countries and continents. their infrastructure, I should say, by their lights. And everywhere has this like hub and spoke design, except for America. We have these massive grid structures because it's all automobile first and people second. Sad.
Well, but that sounds like a topic for a future science sort of. There's a lot of interesting stuff to talk about there. It's human-centric design versus automotive-centered design, and I, as a person who splits my time a lot between like rural areas and urban areas, like I kind of think it's workable for a lot of different. It's not just an urban problem; it's a rural problem too. Like even in small towns, it's not great to have people bombing through Main Street with giant vehicles, and especially when they got those deer things on the front. And I'm just like, oh, so that's just like you want to make sure you kill whatever you hit rather than damage your vehicle,
right?
But I can hear the typing coming from the people who are mad at us now, which is fine. That's send in your feedback to PaleoPOWs@sciencesort.com or via the contact page on our website, sciencesort.com. To wrap things up, we have a Patreon page, which is patreon.com/sciencesort, where you can support the show at various levels. And if you support us at the second tier, your reward for that level of support is a fake thesis. Not fake, I guess. It's a manufactured thesis to earn your BSSO, your Bachelor of Science, sort of.
No,
and
it's a true doctorate. It's just
it's a bachelor's.
We're not bachelor's. We're just not accredited.
That's true. An unaccredited BSSO. In this episode, we have to create a BSSO thesis title for Adrian K. So what has Adrian K been working on? Potato-based stone skipping lightning rods?
Potato-based. Yeah, what are those? I'm thinking of like, what is that movie? It's a rom-com.
That one.
I think it's got Reese Witherspoon in it, and like lightning strikes.
I believe
the
that
sand
is Sweet Home Alabama,
and makes like glass sculptures. I'm envisioning glass potatoes.
Oh,
that's not.
What is that kind of rock that gets made from a lightning bolt?
I don't know.
I mean, it's just quartz, right? Or silica?
Yeah, it's glass, right? I guess it's obsidian.
Fulgurite is the name you're
Fulgurite. Interesting.
Thinking of, because
fulguration, the destruction of small growths or areas of tissue in the bladder. What the frick?
Well, because it's the same shape as lightning.
A flash like that of lightning. Oh, okay. Fulgurite. What's this have to do with it? Ooh, those things are rad.
Yeah, they're cool. So you think Adrian's developed a way to create potato-shaped fulgurites? Is that what you're hinting at, Patrick? Fulgurite skipping stones?
Ooh, that's a good one. I like that. Yeah, manufacture of...
laser-guided manufacture of fulgurite skipping stones.
Ooh,
yes.
Lasers. Laser-guided manufacture.
Fulgurites. Wow, yeah. These things are crazy. Although they're a little cruder than I was led to believe in.
Yeah. That's why Adrian's using a laser.
Yeah.
Yeah, improved the design.
Laser guided manufacture of fulgurite skipping stones. I feel like we need a colon and a little bit more, but we're close.
Oh yeah, colon and a little bit more. Okay, read it again. What we got?
Laser guided manufacture of fulgurite skipping stones.
Colon, optimized shape and mass for, I don't know. So, I want to say like both height and number of skips, but I don't know how to say that scientifically. Apparently neither does anyone else. All right.
What if we come up with an acronym called STRIKE, Selective Transmission of Radiation into Kinetic Ejecta?
Okay.
How about ballistics and skeptistics? That's what I want.
Skeptistics.
I think I'll
all right. Off. Can you say ballistics and skeptistics colon and then laser guided blah blah blah?
Yep, I like it.
All right, congratulations on your degree.
So, Adrian, your thesis title for all to behold is ballistics and skeptistics. I put a hyphen between skip and tistics because it feels like a fake word. Laser guided manufacture of fulgurite skipping stones. Well, thank you for being a supporter, Adrian, and good luck on your future endeavors. I think the idea of making skipping stones right there at the beach just makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, it does.
That's where the water is.
Nobody knows how tides work, though.
I know. Tide goes in, tide goes out. Can't explain that.
It's like robbing banks.
Well, that is our episode, I think. ScienceSorted.com is where you can find the show notes for this episode. If you would like to support the show, Patreon.com/ScienceSorted is where you can become a supporter. Patreon's been making some changes to the way they do things that we haven't dealt with yet, but we will. It has to do with stretch goals, and we just haven't bothered to mess with it yet. But obviously, we're very grateful to the patrons that have stuck with us during something of a period of a hiatus of the show. Wasn't intentional. Life just got busy, and I was very excited that Patrick and Charlie were both available and eager to get on the mic and start recording again. And I'm hoping we can make this a more regularly scheduled thing.
That would be great.
So if you would also like to support the show but don't want to become a patron necessarily, if you want to give a one-time donation, you could do that via PayPal. There's a link to that on ScienceSorted.com. We are also an affiliate with bookshop.org, which you can find at bookshop.org/shop/ScienceSorted, where you can get books. You can get any book you want from a local bookstore. So you're supporting local bookstores and not the Giant River in Amazon. So that's, or the Giant River in Amazon, the Giant River in South America.
Initials are Amazon.
We also try to make sure we feature books both written by people who help make the show possible, such as Soonish by Kelly Wienersmith and her husband, Zach, but also folks we've had on the show. So the most recent episode to come out before this one featured an interview I did with recipe developer, author, chef J. Kenji Lopez Alt and his new book, The Wok, Recipes and Techniques. So it's a really fantastic cookbook that Julie and I have legitimately been using a fair bit in our home, but it was also great to talk to Kenji about The Wok and everything. You know, he's a science of food guy. So there's the charts and graphs and infrared thermometer readings of woks versus European style skillets. And it's just a lot of interesting stuff. So if you haven't checked out that episode, go back one episode in the feed and check that out. Coming up next, I even know what our next episode is going to be.
Oh, wow.
You ready? Can you handle it?
Well, I feel like you're telling me the future.
I am telling you the future. I haven't recorded this interview yet, but the interview was getting scheduled today, so I feel confident that it will be available soon after this episode. And I am talking to an author of a book, so again, bookshop.org, all about koalas. So if you thought my obsession with sloths being a slow metabolic arboreal folivore with giant terrestrial ancestors was too niche, get ready for maybe the most niche conversation that's ever happened on this show.
Wow, that was a Wordle solution recently as well.
Sloth is usually my starter word on Wordle.
Really?
Yeah. Why not?
I mean, koala was the answer, not sloth. But
koala's got 2 A's in it. It's a terrible starter word.
It's not a starter word. That was the answer.
That was a terrible starter word.
Agree. Hard agree.
You guys got anything else going on that you want the people at home to know about?
I mean, I do not. I guess my anti-car stance. Oh, it's really more of a walkable city stance where my non-work energy's been focused lately.
When's your book
I got
coming
nothing. Yeah, exactly. I should write one.
There you go. What about you, Charlie? How you doing?
I'm doing great. I'm just enjoying my kids and my life up here, but nothing too exciting.
I also enjoy my kid, and I enjoy your kid. I enjoy all your kids too. I've been contributing more regularly to iFanboy's Pick of the Week podcast. So if you are a comic book person, go check out ifanboy.com for all the podcasts they put out. I also sometimes hop on their special edition shows, in particular the animated superhero movies that come out, typically DC based, but every once in a while a Marvel one sneaks through. But yeah, social media, all that stuff, it's linked to the website. Just go to ScienceSorted.com. It's got everything you need. And we will see you next time for Koala Talk, where I can guarantee there's going to be a whole lot more science.
Sort of.
Patrick, where were you, man?
Oh, sorry. See, that's how rusty I am. Let's try it again.
For a whole lot more science.
Sort of. I guess.
I don't know. It doesn't feels wrong, right, Charlie? I mean, You were ready. Patrick's over here walking to the town square. Can't even bother to sort of with the rest of us.
I'm 2 Guinnesses in. I'm not really used to doing that on a Thursday night.
Audio production for Science Sort of is done by Rob Heath at Rob Heath Studios. Thanks, Rob.
Visit ScienceSortOf.com for show notes, links to all the stories we talked about, and ways to interact with the hosts, guests, and other listeners. Science Sort of is brought to you by the Brachiolobe Media Network of podcasts. That's all for this week. See you next time on Science Sort of.
We haven't totally lost it.
I guess I have.
No, you've always played the grumpy old man.